Okay. Um, so for people who are here for the first time, we have this group maybe once every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks or sometimes every month, and it's basically for experiencers to share. We sort of remind people to keep your cameras off if you don't want to be on the tape. A lot of people just sit in the background and watch what's going on and listen. If you want to say something, I would encourage you to the chat box on the bottom. You'll see chat box there, and there's how many? A lot of people talking there. 10 people already. Put in the chat box if you want to talk. If you what you do is get the attention of Desta, and she sort of lets me know when we've got to go to the next person. Try to keep your comments relatively short. We'd like to hear everybody's sort of experience, because people really are in the situation where usually nobody listens to them at home. Nobody cares about their story. And here people will listen to your story. I'm going to play a little bit later. I'm going to give you a little update on some of the stuff I've been doing. But I want to sort of open it up for people. I don't know if it's, we have Mark here, I think, a guy who's doing a documentary on experiencers. And I think I invited him, I think he's here, so that if he wants to speak, he can sort of talk about what his project is. And it's sort of to get the reaction of people, not only just your story, like what happened to you, but how did it affect your life? How does it, after you've had the experience, what happens after that? And he's doing a documentary on that. So I invited him here to listen to people who are actually having experiences who can answer those questions. He's using one experiencer in California. I'm not sure if he's on here, but so there's that, and there's a bunch of people. If we can get somebody who hasn't, there's lots of times we always have a bunch of people who don't really get to speak. And so if anybody wanted to speak the last couple of times and wants to speak now, let Desta know or me know. And we'll just open it up. Anybody can jump in. You just unmute your mic if you want to talk, and keep your mic off if you're not talking. Because as I always say, if you and your wife or husband start having a fight, it activates your camera. The minute there's noise, it activates your camera and everybody's going to see what's going on. So, and we have seen some pretty bizarre stuff. So keep your mic off and it will keep your camera off. And when your mic comes on, your image will come on the screen. So does anybody want to start? Oh, the other thing we have, I don't know if did an interview yesterday with Shirley. Yeah, I don't know if she's here, but we have a couple of people who channel. Maybe we can get into that as well. People who do channeling. I had one with Shirley Ryan, Dr. Shirley Ryan yesterday, who channels a woman, an ET by the name of Thanes. And she takes questions the same as Margie, and I don't know if Margie's on here. Margie takes questions on from her beings called the guides. So and Desta also does channeling. So if anybody has questions they want to put to Thanes or the guides, but Thanes, I've seen the page this morning, likes to take questions. So anybody's got a question they want answered, I put my first question up there today. And because there are people here who contend that they are in contact with the intelligence. So if you want something answered, there may be someone on here who can get the question to the people who can get you your answer. Anybody want to start?
Yeah, I'll start, Grant.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I'd like to share my white orb UFO experience that.
Oh, wow. Okay, and you're and give your background. You're not just an ordinary guy. You're like a physicist guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just so people know that you have some background, because orbs, is a very contentious subject. I'm doing, and I'll be showing that later. I'm doing orbs 3. I have a whole new group of people who have huge collections, but as you see when I post those videos, there are a lot of people who just are very upset about orbs and this whole thing. So tell me, to give me your background and then give me your story as to
Okay, I was going to
and what you think orbs are.
Yeah, I think this Mark might find this interesting, actually. Um, yeah, in fact, I want to bring up the share screen
Okay.
and
I
talk.
think Desta can give you permission. Correct, Desta? Now there's security stuff. We have to give permission to share now. But you've been here long. We trust you.
Okay.
Have you got it? Can you share there on the bottom of the screen?
Yeah, I hit it now.
Yeah.
It says
Yeah.
host,
See if it
it
works.
says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay. Let's see if Desta can get that open for you. But tell the story while we're
Yeah,
working on this.
this happened in 1976 when I was 36 years old. I'm now 80, and it's and I'm a very educated person, you might say. I have a PhD in aerodynamics and theoretical physics. I have a master's in marriage, family, child counseling.
Wow.
I've been to hell and back. Let's put it that way. So, but anyway, it was the experience of 1976 was a very religious one because it happened in a religious context, and I understood in the immediate aftermath what the entity was that actually had entered and passed through me. So let me, because I have some images.
Okay. See if you can share now. Have you got permission?
Yeah, it came right up. Thanks.
Okay, good. Good.
Can you see the screen okay?
Let me check here. Hang on. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So let me shrink the kid here just a little bit so I can see it. So I have this text here, and let me just read it to you. So my experience was a very religious one. A basketball-sized white UF orb entered me, starting at my shins, as you can see in the image to the left of the man standing there, and this white orb is pushing against his shins. And it quickly moved up my legs and into my torso, and it dwelt in my chest. I sensed I was becoming vaporized and would soon float upwards. In other words, I was experiencing anti-gravity or levitation. And when I became concerned, the entity suddenly ceased the vaporization activity and resumed its journey up my body. It went up inside through my neck and into my head and assumed a teardrop shape, and with the pointy end trying to emerge through my third eye area. After a short but pressure-filled attempt to exit like this, it made it, and I could perceive its direction of departure. It rose to the high apex of the building I was standing in and rapidly moved to the front of the building and disappeared. And the building that I was standing in was Holy Trinity Church in San Pedro, California in 1976. I was raised Roman Catholic. And the front of the building is where the altar was located. For me, the entity was the Holy Spirit. And it was during Sunday morning Mass, and it was a packed church. The anti-gravity aspect I eventually understood to be symbolic message that the experience is the image to the left of the man. You see, I chose one that highlighted the chakra system, the 7 chakras from the east. Okay. Because when it dwelt in my chest area, my heart chakra area, that seemed central. And when it emerged through the third eye, something happened to me, because after that, I had tremendous visions and dreams that have persisted now for almost that long, so many years ago. So, Mark, maybe that's something that you will find of interest, and that's really what I have to say.
Wow. So I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
In terms of, you mentioned the fact that there's trials and tribulations. I'm just doing some work on the connection between near-death experience, out-of-body experience, as particularly near-death experience, and the UFO phenomena. And you may know, may not know that near-death experience, people have near-death experiences, 75% of them get divorced. So there is this trauma thing that after the event, or you have these higher suicide rates and stuff like that, that it's almost like the UFO thing where you sort of move apart and people don't understand you anymore, and they don't get you anymore, and people think it's going to be, great revelation, but a lot of people do have a problem. That's why these experiencer groups are so good, is that you can come here and people will understand what you're talking about. They will actually they know what you're going through.
Right.
As
Yeah.
as a physicist, let me ask you a question, because I was just working on I'm working on a book called Extraterrestrial or Maybe Not, and I got into this whole thing about what are we really dealing with here. And I got into this whole thing about, and you can ask from your perspective of having a sort of a spiritual journey your whole life. John Wheeler said, there is no out there, which is exactly what Bashar said, which gives this concept that it's all within us. Everything is within us. There is no, and Wheeler was like a top physicist guy. So how do you see that? Do you see it as a thing where, like they say, an out-of-body experience, you're actually going in your body? When you die, you actually go into a state of, in a lower, higher vibrating state that's already inside yourself, and that the physical world is actually, the physical body is actually sort of the outer crust of your being, and so you're not really going anywhere. Everything is here, everything is now, everything is one. Do you understand that from your years of being a physicist and also working in this field?
Yeah, actually, I would. Um, I would put it a little more um, in a broader context of that nature is everything. Nature is destiny, and nature is extremely complex. We have no idea how incredibly complex nature is. So that we might be temporarily temples for what I would call the Holy Spirit, uh, and that our soul doesn't die when we die, that it somehow winds up back in nature in some new form, but spiritual, not bodily incarnated. Uh, I totally believe that, because when you look at Einstein-Boise condensate, that's too complicated, but it's like the universe and the other dimensions outside of even our universe uh, talks about incredible complexity that we have no inkling of yet, and that everything is possible, therefore. Yeah, I mean, most physicists, I have to tell you, an awful lot of them anyway, I would say that, become very spiritual when after a long enough period of involved in physics, because they see the depths at which nature can plummet and the complexities that are in that. And they become religious. You know, they may not go to church, but they become convinced that this is just a phenomenal thing we're involved in. And so in my opinion, there's no need to go to extraterrestrial theories to explain your experience. It's the powers of the universe that are impinging on you, and it's impinging on its creation to further our evolution, because we are the danger. We have this psychic ability, we have this psychic antenna that receives all these impulses from nature, and and we're ignorant of how it works, and so we act in ways that we shouldn't. But if we were more evolved in our consciousness, we wouldn't act in those ways. So that's the journey for me. I'm sorry to be a little too long-winded there, but
No,
that's my
no,
response.
that's beautiful. I appreciate it because you have the scientific perspective, because that you have to admit that is a real stretch when people have to. It's almost like the days of the world appear to be flat. The sun appears to go around the earth. It appears to be solid, and we're going through that renaissance again, where people have to realize, no, this is an illusion. That there, the idea there may not be any time, there's space, physical world, no out there. That it's all within ourselves, and that's a pretty dramatic move from what people believe is going on if you go in the outside world.
Well, wait a minute. Let me correct. It's something I think I heard you say there. I totally believe in our incarnated state here in this world. This is real. You can't, I can't deny that. But I agree with Wheeler to the extent that the real world is the inner world. That's the journey. The inner world, the journey into your inner world, in your dreams and your inner life, and understanding the symbolism in that and the messages therefore it contains. That's the communication. And that's where it should be sought, not out there running around, with Stephen Greer trying to conjure up UFOs to appear. That's all outer stuff,
Yeah,
It's just nonsense. The guy needs to grow up, for Christ's sakes. So anyway,
okay.
I shouldn't talk too much here.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Anybody else want to jump in here?
Julia is here. John has his hand up, and then Julia is the one who sent us the orb videos, and she has a couple new ones that she wants to share next.
Oh, should we do the orb video? Yeah, you have to send me those. Maybe well, we'll go first to, who's the other one?
John.
Let's do John first, then we'll go to Julie. And I've got the PowerPoint set up. I've got the first video that Julia sent, which is it's pretty amazing.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to touch on the trauma issue. In my experience, and I guess I can share this. It's a bit personal, but I come from severe abuse as a child from a very, very early age into my till about 10 or 11, somewhere in that range. And what I've found is other people that have had a lot of these experiences, this spiritual awareness or expansion or whatever you want to call it, have that commonality that they're, may it be a, near-death experience or something in their life that has been extreme as far as the emotional distress or trauma is concerned. And I'm finding that more and more and more as I work with different people and, at different paths and different levels of their expansion and their awareness. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on was things I've been shown that I've really come to at least feel that I understand is the consciousness, as we incarnate into these lives, it's just a fractal of what our soul is. And we are indeed experiencing multiple incarnations simultaneously. The reality that we're experiencing now with linear time is just a reference. Time is actually a tool, a reference that allows us to make sense of the experiences if they, in somewhat of a chronological order. When we go into dream time, that's a reality to itself, or certain other realities that are every bit as real. They do have different rules. Going out of body, when I meditate and I go out of body, I learn to be quite good at it. And I can go to different places and I can project my consciousness. And Gregory's absolutely correct. There are different rules that apply. These different realities have completely different qualities in a very complex nature. So when I'm seeing, when like friends of mine will ask me, John, I saw this, or John, I saw something strange, or I saw an orb. What did I see? And my question is always, what did you feel? Because as we're experiencing, these profound, things happening in our lives, I think what it really comes down to is making that connection with our true selves, our true souls, not the ego that we're living in or the temporary physical body that we're just occupying right now, but what is the truth of us? And when Gregory's talking about the orb that came up through his body and it stopped in the heart chakra area, I wanted to ask him what did he feel at that point also. And then, but these chakras, as the energies enter our body, it's kind of funny because when I have energy enter my body, it comes in from the top, it comes in down through the crown chakra, and works. Usually I try and pay as much attention to the upper 4 chakras because we do indeed live in the bottom 3 more often than not. And we're having these experiences, and it's really, I think what really lies in a challenge, at least for myself, is to have the awareness of these higher dimensional aspects of ourselves, which are limitless, and also be able to make sense to our physical 3-dimensional material life at the same time. And that's the biggest challenge I have. I remember certain things, like I'd be sitting in a room at a certain job, or we're at a meeting and there's 35 people in the room, and this beautiful golden orb came right through the room, passed through within a foot of my friend's head, went right out the other wall, and I was the only one that saw it. And I felt this beautiful light and love, and I'm looking around the room. Why am I the only one that's seeing this right now? And when I was younger, it used to drive me crazy because I tried to explain it to someone. I had no one to talk to about these things. And I really thought I was going crazy because I was the only one that was seeing these things. Yeah. I can go back since I was, in single digits. I have memories of seeing craft and things like that when I was 5. Yeah. But, to kind of wrap up my statements here is, I do believe all of this is connected to one single purpose, and it's the expansion of our awareness. The consciousness is a constant; it's omnipresent. It's our awareness that shifts and expands, that allows us to interpret these experiences and to see different aspects of what the universe and nature and true existence is. What is it? What is creation? And to me, God is creation, and we are all fractals thereof. That's what I wanted to share.
John, let me ask you, because people may not have been, you've been on my light language panel. You have a lot of ability. You've got a YouTube channel where you do light language. So for people that maybe aren't familiar with light language, can you explain what it is? And if you have a message that you can give, I know Hildegard is also on here who does light language, but I find this one of the most fascinating things I've seen. And I didn't see it years ago, and suddenly there's a lot of people popping up, and you're one of the experts at it. So I wanted to sort of get your take on that for people who aren't familiar with light language here.
Well, I don't want to call myself an expert, but I'm experienced enough of it to understand how it affects me and how I can use it. What is it? And too bad, I don't know if Phil Gruber's on here, but Phil's really great at telling you what the nuts and bolts of light language are. But let's simplify it. Let's distill it down to a very simple context, and that would be, it's an expression of your inner self. And like you said, if we really want to expand our consciousness and awareness, don't look outward. It is indeed inward. It is to quiet the ego mind. And when we express from these different languages, what are they? This is the way it was shown to me when I first really studied. I went into I was meditating. I had a period of time in my life when I was able to meditate, 4 or 6 hours a day, every day. And that was monumental in my understanding. I can't do that now. But I was shown through my guides, which are, higher dimensional beings that are every bit as real as you and I, but they exist in a different context. They exist in different vibrational platforms. And they would tell me, okay, so I'm like, what am I speaking? And the first thing that would come back to me is, what are you feeling? And what are you seeing? And I would get, the visions would flow, and it was such a rapid succession of visions, but there was always this emotion that was attached to it. And it wasn't the emotion of, it wasn't a physical emotion, even though my physical body would respond. Very often it was these tears of gratitude. I many times I would come out of a meditation and the front of my t-shirt was completely soaked from the tears of joy that just were pouring. But when we get back to the expression of light language, you know, if we look at things as, okay, each of our souls is or a fractal of our soul or our consciousness or our true selves is incarnated into this physical body, there are other incarnations that are existing simultaneously, not within this particular linear time, but you may exist on other planets. Creation is vast. Is there physical life on other planets? Absolutely. Is there physical life in other dimensions? Absolutely. So you're tapping into expressions that kind of intertwine through the spiritual intent. So to kind of put a label on it, and it's really not all that accurate, but to put a label on some of the dialects, one of my primary dialects happens to be one of the ancient Pleiadian dialects, and I understand that there are over 6,000 dialects in just the Pleiadian languages alone. But what is that? That's an expression of experiences that I had or have, however you want to look at it, because we are in the now, past, present, future, all at once. But I can tap into those energies and pull them down into this reality. And it's almost like taking some wisdom and experiences. We call them past lives for the point of reference. It helps us in this reality, but it's really not all that accurate in my understanding. We're using this energy that is from different aspects of ourselves. We have many higher aspects. And when it was like, you know, a typical example of that would be deja vu. Everybody said, wow, I feel like I've done this before. Well, why have you? You either have or you are simultaneously having that experience in another dimension. That's what that is. So if we can tap into this energy and we can see this, you know, bring into, you know, expand our awareness to actually tap into what our true nature is, which it is infinite. We are a soul that is a fractal of our soul is occupying this physical body to experience all the intimate and most, you know, profound experiences in every conceivable possibility within this realm. And then you start to evolve, or you start to ascend. And that's when you get like your ascended masters. They've already completed that. You get your Buddha and your Babaji and Kuan Yin and Jesus and all these ascended masters. Why did they ascend? They completed all those incarnations that brought them to a higher platform. So now the lowest platform they exist on is higher than where we are existing in this particular part of our awareness. So the message that you wanted me to or you alluded to is, this is interesting. Right after we did the light language panel, as soon as I turned off, I hit leave on the Zoom, I got a very strong message from my guides, and I'm getting energy coming down through me right now, that I had been kind of dormant. I'd pulled back from doing any public work for a little over 2 years. And it was, John, it's time to get back to work. Now it's time to start sharing this information again. And so I'm just going to say something very, very briefly. I'm going to use some ancient dialect. And this is the message that I'm getting to share right now is, again, let's really focus on going inward. There is so much distraction going on in the world right now, and we're completely inundated with tremendous amounts of negative energy. But it's not more powerful there's nothing more powerful than the light of creation that burns within each one of us. And so they use the ancient tongue, Tahala wareba botutoka baka zobuchichin chintanana aqua kiempo atatianana. Jubwala la lainya nimememe en quakia botutu repe repotutanama kiamin shapuahiani. Always remember your inner self is always your truth. Meche.
Beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's For a lot of people, that will sound bananas, but I've seen enough people doing it that I think it's time to pay attention, and it's wonderful. And you have a number of dialects you speak, and the light language panel, for people who haven't seen it, it was very dramatic. We had a bunch of people all basically with the same sort of messages from different systems or different dialects and stuff. And I just find it absolutely fascinating. It just absolutely fascinating. And I appreciate your sharing that with me. And
Well,
hopefully,
can I add in a comment on this?
yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, because about a year after that experience with that orb passing up through me, I wound up in charismatic renewal, and I began to speak in tongues.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
And
Absolutely beautiful.
I actually went to the guy. This is a story that after the panel, there's a guy who actually does. His name is I'm gonna say his name. He's at Thomas Jefferson University. He used to be in the University of Pennsylvania. And his name is escaping me, but I contacted him, and they put people who had done meditating, channeling, praying. They did the speaking in tongues. They put those people in MRIs, and what they did is they looked at the MRI brain pattern. So I said to him, we got these light language people. How would you like to? Because everybody asked me the question, is this the same as speaking in tongues? And I said, well, I don't know, but it would be interesting to put some light language people in an MRI machine and look at it. And he was actually very fascinated with it. The catch was, he said, well, it's $2,000, and if you use this other one, it's $4,000. And he said it's to do 10 people, it's $50,000 plus transportation and cost to keep people in hotels. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that sort of solves that problem. But they were actually willing to do this, put light language people in to show that there is a distinct pattern that that you take on that enables you to open up the channel or whatever it is. But there are scientists who are interested in looking at this phenomenon.
yeah, I'll just say too, though, that it seems to me there's an archetypal pattern that's taking place here, pre-existent to our current time, because it wasn't long, after I began to speak in foreign languages that you found yourself singing. They call it singing in the spirit. And I would go to group meetings in a charismatic renewal, and there would be group singing in the spirit. It was absolutely beautiful. It was harmonious. It was just incredible. And of course, the next thing in the evolving of that kind of gift, if you will, is people suddenly understand what's being said. So I'm waiting to see when that starts to happen in the UFO community, because I sense the archetypal footprints here. The footprints are in the sand, and so we'll have to see how it plays out. But one more thing with your abuse, John, when you were raised,
Yes,
when I went through the marriage family counseling training at a master's level, 90% of the people going through the program were women. And so I was a rare commodity there. And I'll tell you this, 90% of the people who went through that program wound up getting divorced because of the psychological trauma and the growth that people experienced in seeing a deeper aspect of their reality, their consciousness, what they were doing with their lives. And so there's just all kinds of collateral damage to families and lives when you go through a psychological transformation. So it's just par for the course. It's the cost of progress. And that's how I think the gods look at this, or the creator of the universe looks at this. We're not in charge here. There's something else in charge.
Agreed.
I'm here. This is Zena, and I wanted to say something to both Gregory and John. There's just so much I could say about everything you've already said, but you've said it, and it's beautiful. Thank you. I just wanted to mention that throughout my journey, which for me has always been the word spiritual journey for myself, even though certain experiences fit totally in everything that's spoken about here, the words of training, like there's specialized words when you're learning that I learned and I have studied with Sufis. I don't know, I'm sure you're both familiar with that, possibly. I am here, right?
Yeah. You're speaking.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, cool.
I think you're muted. Yeah.
Okay, so what I wanted to say was that certain experiences that I had, such as an entity that came to me from a really wild experience I won't get into, but it was in an out-of-use synagogue that I lived in that I was guided to by a bat, of all things. We won't get into that here. Anyway, I was guided to this building, and before me became a presence that altered its image continuously until it scared the living shit out of me. And that's when I began this full force journey that I'd already been doing before, and guided me to some group of Sufis at some point. And they said, my journey, and it's kind of funny because, you know, there's all kinds of people studying the great work and spiritual journey. But they said to me very clearly that my journey is weird. And I thought, oh, they're telling me I'm a weirdo, which is they never do. They just never did that. And I realized part of my being said to me, that's because for some reason, they're refusing to acknowledge we are in the new era and that each and every one of us have access. Like in the Christian era, you almost had to die on the cross. And you're speaking about that, Gregory, about that horrific pain. I'm not saying we're not going to have it. Been there, done that, not finished yet. So I totally get that. But in this new era, it is very different. Access to, this is what I heard when they told me this, access to these realms in this new era are much easier. We don't have to die on the cross. It's called one term for it is thelema. I don't know if you know that. And so I realized that this group of Sufis I was working with were absolutely amazing beings, fantastic, but they didn't have this foreknowledge for some reason and couldn't see it and told me I was a weirdo. And what I heard was, no, around the globe right now, just like me, there are others having this really unusual experience that doesn't fit into the old models. And I'm just really pleased to be here because I have so much more to say, but that was it. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Zena, for adding that. I want to go now because Julia, do you have your videos linked up where you can take over the screen? I had the one, but if you've got more, because if people think that light language is kind of bananas, fasten your seatbelts. I mean, the video you sent me, the first one you sent me was like unbelievable. I just couldn't believe, and this got to do with orbs, which is a very sort of controversial subject. And so if you can take over the screen and maybe explain how you started filming this, and especially this first one that you sent to Desta in the bedroom, that people should see this.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yes.
Okay. Well, before I show that, let me, I actually did my timeline of how I came to sending Desta and you that video. Okay. So, and hello, everybody. I'm very honored to be here and to see all of you. Don't leave me. No, just kidding. No. All right. So in 2006, I bought a nice Sony digital camera and felt pretty cool about that. And then was taking pictures. I'm in Washington State, by the way. Okay. And I was taking pictures down at a place called Ruston Way, which is a waterfront area. I got into photography. You know, we have beautiful tulip fields here. I was taking pictures of tulips. Anyway, I started taking pictures of the water and noticed that all my pictures were screwed up. It had dust on it. So I kept buying these lens cloths and cleaning my lenses or my lens. And I was pretty exasperated. And I told my friend, I'm like, my camera's a piece of crap. It doesn't work. It's dirty all the time. And she goes, well, let me look at it, because she had a Sony as well. And she looked at my camera and she goes, or my pictures, she goes, oh, those are orbs. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean orbs? She goes, oh, they're things that float around. And anyway, I said, so how do I get rid of those orbs? And she said, acknowledge them. So I was like, yeah. So I was like, all right, I see you, you're in my pictures. I really want to start taking more pictures, but I feel like, you know, I can't use my camera. As soon as I started talking to the orbs, they went away. And then I was taking pictures, and while I'm taking pictures, I'm like, oh my God, I communicated with something. So then I specifically said, okay, I'm ready to see you, start showing me you. So, I started taking pictures of orbs. So that's how that started.
Have you had experiences, other experiences in your life, or is that your first sort of paranormal experience?
Yes, I did. Yes, I have. So a friend of mine, I used to work for a city, and a friend of mine, we used to have these conversations about, you know, the unknown. He's like, Julia, let's go to the BFRO, which is the Bigfoot Research Organization. Let's go to a expedition. Let's go camping for 3 nights. And what I heard was, Julia, let's go drink beer for 3 nights and go camping and sit around a fire. It's only $150. I'm like, I'm in, you know? So I just wanted to drink beer and camp. I had a stressful job, and, you know, I love nature. So I went with all these Bigfoot people, which were, to me, you know, they were geeky. They were, and I love geeks, and they were geeky. And I remember I showed up and I took my camping gear out, and everybody was sitting in like the circle in their chairs, and they're like, oh, we're going to go for a walk. And, you know, don't be surprised if you see this or that. And, you know, I wasn't rolling my eyes, but I'm like, I just want a beer, you know? And then someone talked about UFOs, and I just went like this to my friend, like, oh boy, okay, you know, and I have a mouth on me, but I didn't say anything. I was like, all right. So anyway, prior to drinking a beer, we went for a walk, and I remember my senses started to come alive, and I was like, God, something's, I kept saying, are we being tracked by a cougar? Because I can feel something, I can hear something. And everyone's like, yeah, a cougar. You know, they were like, I guess they were just going along with me or whatever. Other people were like, well, when we drove here, we saw a Sasquatch, but it cloaked, it disappeared. And I just remember thinking, okay, I need to learn a new lingo. You know, my new geeky friends are saying things that I don't understand, but I'm gonna get it. I didn't drink because I had a feeling something was gonna happen. And that night we did a walk, and I had had my Bigfoot experience, but I didn't see it with my eyeballs, but I sensed it because things around me were moving. And I had gotten some fellow people around me into taking pictures of orbs. They had their cameras, they were snapping things, showing me. And I thought that was pretty exciting. And then the next day, I had my Sony digital camera. I turned the flash off so I could take macro shots of the wildflowers around me. So I had my flash off, which meant my camera wasn't on, sending out any electronic vibes or sensations. That's how I was seeing it. When a Sasquatch walked in front of me and down this dirt road. And I sat there and stared at it and started taking pictures. And I stood there for about 15 minutes, and people in the camp area were watching me and smiling, and I was just looking at them. And I was like, I think I got something. And then, long story short, we looked at my pictures, we saw it. But I was still in my mind saying, well, it was probably my friend John wearing a black tracksuit playing jokes on me. So that's where I was. So that's my experience, my big experience with Sasquatch. I could go on and on.
Wow.
I did not have a near-death experience, though, just so you know.
Okay.
So yeah, in 2007, orbs appeared, started taking pictures of them. In 2008, I got into Reiki. So I've been doing Reiki, practicing it, things like that. 2009 to 2010, I started taking nightly photos outside of my house of things in the sky, orbs, like things like that. I was cropping them, sending them to friends. All my friends were like, oh my God, that's neat. 2010 to 2012, I joined a meditation group, which I thought was pretty cool, until I could see that there were people there that I felt like they were flakes and fakes, and they were taking advantage of some of the women there and their spiritual awareness or whatever. So I got out of that, and it kind of died for me. Not because of that, but I was like, I felt like, Grant, I heard you talk about UFOs and stuff, and you said, seen it, done it, seen all I wanted to see, I'm good. That's how I felt about, you know, in me and my shallow mind, that's how I felt about orbs and spiritual stuff. I'm like, okay, I've seen it all. I don't think anything could top it. And then let's speed up to 2020. I got back, I started watching a video, the Asceti, with the Asceti group with well, Grant, you were a guest. You were his guest in April. That's
Okay.
how I got your name,
Okay.
with Jim. And so I watched that and I'm like, oh gosh, Grant's talking about stuff that I'm familiar with. And then Grant started showing these orb panel videos, and I was watching your group and I was like, you were going to show a video. And I'm like, where's the video? And I even posted it on your Facebook page. And while I was waiting for you to post the video, I was laying in bed with this curtain next to me, and I turned my video camera on with the flash, and I'm like, is anybody here? And then I started getting a light show, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I sent them to Desta, who sent them to you, and here we are. And the ones I've been taking since in the last week have been even more interesting. And so I'm just ready to share.
Go ahead. Yeah, this is banana stuff.
Okay. All right, I'll play them in order. They're very short, you guys. So
Especially
here we
you got
go.
the commentary, so it's not just an orb thing that you make the commentary after. You're actually commenting as the thing is happening.
Yes, I'm talking to them, communicating. I'm mentioning your name. I'm mentioning Desta's name. I mentioned that, and the only reason why I'm here is because I got permission to show them to you. Otherwise, if I hadn't had permission, I'm all about consequences. I wasn't gonna even mention anything, but they want to be seen. Yeah, so
we appreciate it. Okay.
yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, here. So I clicked screen share. All right. Okay, now I need to get to my desktop. Do I just?
Yeah, it should show your desktop. Double click to enter screen mode.
Okay.
Double click to enter screen mode, whatever that means. Oh, here we go. There's the birds.
Oh, you see the crows?
Yeah, just for a second.
Okay.
I see your Zoom screen now. There's the crows.
Okay. I like crows, by the way. All right, so I have them in order. Here's the first one. And they're not really in, well, they're just in order for your eyeballs to see, I guess.
Yeah.
Can't explain it. All right, here we go. Anything happening?
No, nothing yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, also, since we've made contact, is there a blue box?
Here comes the blue box is coming up now.
Okay. By the way, all of my electronics have been going crazy, literally. Turning off, stopping.
Wow.
You guys know what I'm talking about. All right, here we go.
Can you go full screen on that?
Okay.
Then,
yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay.
I think the bandwidth here is not real great, Grant, and that's why it's so slow.
Oh, okay. Too many people.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And we have to see this video. I know.
And I have a dinosaur of a laptop, so.
Let me plug my. What the heck? Don't tell me they're not going to get seen. They want to be seen, and they may not be seen.
She probably needs to upgrade her dinosaur laptop.
Wow.
Have you clicked right in the middle of the arrow?
Are you still there?
Julia has frozen. She may have died.
Oh. Okay. But she's got the screen now. That's weird. I've got it. I can show the first video. I've got it on a PowerPoint, but.
Oh.
Oh, you're still there. Can you hear us? Julia, are you there?
All right. It's not playing yet.
You figure because it's on her desktop, it shouldn't have to do with bandwidth. If it's is it playing on your desktop? No.
I guess now's a
You may have to log back in. You're sort of breaking.
good time
out.
to use the bathroom.
Grant, do you want to show your version that she has? Will she I'm not
Okay,
sure.
can you turn off her share screen and I'll
Yeah.
share the screen of what I've got here of this first video here. But she has to stop share screen and then I'll share
I'm
screen
trying to stop it here.
and then she can talk about it. Yeah, people have to, because we had the last video, we had that video of Connie showed with the orb zipping around the room, and that one didn't play, and now this one's not. It's almost like they're playing with us here. They don't want this.
It's not letting me stop it.
Are you still there, Julia? Can you stop her?
Yeah, like I'm trying, but it's not working.
Well, can you stop her and make her reboot?
Oh yeah, okay, maybe I'll do that.
Otherwise, we'll not be able to stop that share screen. Yeah, usually we don't have this problem with.
No, I think she froze, and so it's frozen the option for me to be. And you know what? If I remove her, she won't be able to log back in. Oh, maybe that worked.
Oh, okay. So now let me see if I can share. Okay. You see my screen here? Share. Here we go. This is my rabbit hole. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is the PowerPoint. I'll do the rest later, but this is our DNA test, but her video is down here at the bottom. Just to show a couple other videos, we have this girl will be on the next orb panel. She has 130,000 orb photos. And this girl, I'm trying to talk her desperately, as she's got the best collection I've ever seen out of Arizona. Someone said this was a spider. Can you see that on the orbs coming there with the colors? Someone said it was a spider on the lens, and so I said, well, this is one of her others. Is that a spider on the lens? There's a lot of spiders on her lens. And she's got this one, and then this one just she just published this one. And so just to show you, and we also have Annetta here, who I'll get on later. Annetta actually had the two beings that were singing light language to each other. And I'll get her to tell that story. She's here from Macedonia. But this is Arizona. So you can see there's a lot of people. This is the DNA test. I'll skip over that because we want to go to the video. Okay, here's the video. Let's play it full screen here.
Hello, friends.
Is that coming through?
Wow, you guys are waiting for me, weren't you? I need to tell you that Desta, and I don't know how to say her last name, starts with a B.
The problem is we can't see the orbs.
And I told her I was going to let you know, but apparently you guys are just as excited as I am. Thank you for that. Thank you for this welcoming.
Yeah, it's like a still shot. It's not a video.
So why does it do that all the time? Because I this time I linked it. Last time I didn't link it. This time I linked it. So for people who are sorry for this, but basically on that back screen, she's talking and these orbs are all over the place. Are you there still, Julia? Can you describe what's going on? Because we can't. My screen is frozen. The video as well. Is Julia there? And then she says to them, are you, was it pixies and fairies and stuff? And give me an answer. And then it just increases big time. And they start coming right out the camera. And then she talks about them taking the water out of the tank, out of the aquarium. And she's got a bunch more. So I'm not sure how we're going to show these videos, because they are very dramatic videos where she's taken a whole series of them. And that's what I find is a pattern with these people, is that the people who got orb videos don't just have one orb video. They have piles of orb videos. They see faces in the orbs. They have huge collections. They've never gone public with them. And yet I can't show the video. I mean, she's got a bunch of videos here.
I'm back.
You're back?
Yes.
So my screen has sort of frozen too, in terms of I've got the still shot there.
Yeah, that's. Let me. Yeah. Would you like me to attempt again?
Okay. Let me try again. Hang on. Let me stop share here, and you try one more time.
Okay. Okay. I had to talk with whatever's in my room. I don't know if who did it, but yeah. Okay. I am in Seattle. I am in Washington State, so weird things happen. Okay, here we go.
You're right by Microsoft there. They should
Exactly. Say no more. Huh? Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to click share screen. And then now it's saying select a window or application you want to share.
Share. Can you see
Yeah,
the app?
press like your desktop, or if it's in a folder or documents or wherever it is in your computer.
Okay, I would like my desktop. Let's see here. It doesn't, well, I'm going to click share just for the heck of it.
Here you go now. Double click to enter full screen mode.
Okay.
You started share screen, it says.
Okay. Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. All right. Do you see my desktop?
I see your crows. Yes.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Actually. Oh, I see what I did. When I and before I show that, it's saying launching. I think I'm relaunching this Zoom session. I wonder if there's a way I could stop it and go back to my desktop.
Just X out on the top there of the tab.
Okay.
If this is opening a new tab.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you're back.
All right.
To close.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. All right. Here we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll all applaud if it works.
Okay.
There's the blue box. There's
all
the
right.
screen.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Come on,
okay.
Orbs, let it happen.
This is 1 of 6. Yes, let's let it happen. Can you hear me while this plays?
Yes.
Oh, good. Matt Damon is my beta, by the way.
Okay.
So you'll know why.
Hello, friends.
But Julie, I think we need to start a GoFundMe for your.
I need to tell you that Desta, and I don't know how to say her last name, starts with a B. She is going to share one of the videos with Grant Cameron. And I told her I was going to let you know, but apparently you guys are just as excited as I am.
There's actually way more orbs than.
Thank you for this welcoming display.
It gets, as the videos increase, Grant, you'll see more.
Are you guys fae or fairies?
It should still be more, like I've seen the video and there's way more videos than orbs than we're seeing here.
Okay, that answers that. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you please do me a favor? Do not empty Matt Damon's tank. The 3 inches of water freaked me out. I know you guys did that, didn't you? Okay, and you got my attention. I will get more plants. I will bring more plants in my room for you guys to enjoy. I love nature, so I will bring nature in this room. Don't empty his tank. But it was funny. I don't know why it was funny, but it was funny. Thank you very much, you guys. I love you, and I will be recording you in a minute. I just want to send this to Desta. You guys are great. I love you. I do love you, and I feel your love, and I feel your humor. I love humor.
All right, so they Gregory, I believe it was Gregory that said he could feel the energy from the orbs entering from the top of his head.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I can feel them entering. I mean, not even entering. It's like being hugged, and so like right now it's so energetic in here, and it is. But when I filmed this video, prior to this video, I did another one. And I was like, before I left my room, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I had to tell them everything I was doing, but I felt something didn't feel, I don't know, complete. When I came back from wherever I went and gave a Reiki treatment to a friend. I came home, I had 3 inches of water in my fish tank, and my fish was like swimming sideways, like looking at me like, what happened? And there was no reason for that water to leave the tank. Yeah. And I looked at my curtain and I said, did you guys do that? And then I just started laughing, and then I was freaking out. I said, don't do that, you know? And so that's why that happened. Okay, let me go to the next video here.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't see the clear ones, because on the video, there's like got to be 15 of them flying around there, and they're pretty clear on the video you sent me.
I think the connection is so bad, we're not seeing the full stream, Julia. We're seeing like every couple seconds, so it's
frames,
so glitchy, we can't really see half of what you have. Maybe you can email either me or Grant them, and we can try and see if we can play them from our computer.
I definitely will.
Yeah, try to guess this, because
try and just send them right now, and I'll try and set it up here and see if it works better on my computer.
Okay, let me
okay.
Is there, can I drag and drop them into the Zoom chat, or do I literally need to email them?
Try it, see if it works.
I don't actually
Okay.
know that. Yeah, definitely
I don't know how
try
to...
it, and if it doesn't, then email, because we're still...
Let me email. I don't even know why I said that. I wouldn't even know what to do, so I just wanted to sound important. So let me see.
No, you've got important stuff. I'm going to bring you on the next Orb Planet.
Okay.
Drop them, and if they don't drop in the chat, then email them to me like right now, and
okay.
And as soon as I have them, then I'll bring.
And then we'll go back to Julia as soon as you get the videos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go to Annetta for a second. Annetta, can you open Annetta's mic?
All right, let's see.
NTST Annetta. And I want her to tell a story about the
Yes, hello everyone.
Yes, Annetta, thank you. People were talking about singing light language, so I wanted you to just quickly tell the story about the beings that you encountered. And you've got a collection. We're going to put the video of yours up. You've got 1,000, 2,000, whatever, 3,000 videos. You can film almost every night the same thing. You've got incredible photos, but I wanted you to tell the story about the two beings that were singing the light language.
Yes, actually, yes, a lot of pictures I have. As usual, I'm going outside every night and shooting pictures and pictures and pictures and giving love to the universe. And at one point, I decided, okay, I will take a break for 15-20 minutes and take a cup of coffee with my mom. My mother was still alive. It was 4 years ago, more or less. And yes, we were taking coffee inside the house with the windows open. My son was in his bedroom. We don't have a big house, but actually, while taking coffee, I just heard my cat. I have a lot of cats, you know, and I heard my cat was just like screaming, you know, to something, but I couldn't hear the other cat voice from or other animal. I just heard my cat Marco just like yelling or screaming to someone, and I was calling like Marco, what are you doing? What's wrong? You know?
Yeah.
And yes, I for a few times I just asked for him, you know, and at one point I just heard two voices like talking to each other, but it was so loud, and there was like singing. It was like a melody. It was so fantastic, so beautiful. Like I cannot find the words. It was amazing, but they were singing. They were not talking. It was like, you know, like they are singing some kind of a melody. And yes, I went outside where I supposed that it was my cats near to the window beside of the house, and shoot the pictures. Yes, I could see Marco, my cat, was still like frozen, watching in a certain direction. I couldn't see anything with my eyes, but I get one of the beings on one of my photos. It is a very small being, maybe 50 centimeters, something like that. Very small, on the rooftop of my first neighbor house. It was amazing, Grant. It was like, you know, like a melody. Singing, who is singing? I was saying, you know, yes, okay, I know, because I was outside and I have this interaction with beings, with UFOs, with orbs, with everything, you know. Yeah. It was unforgettable. Yes, my son heard it too, and yes, he still remember he still remember.
And he's been part of your filming. And for people who don't know, I always say Annetta is a famous movie star in Macedonia. We don't put
Yes,
her
very famous. Oh,
but we will
yeah.
show we do show your photos, and you've had
Uh,
a couple of encounters with beings that you've actually photographed, and we'll show
mhm.
those. The one up very, very close. You had the one where the light is behind him and he's standing actually right there, and you're like within a
Yes.
couple of feet of
Yeah.
him.
Yes, it was an orb. He came in an orb because actually you should see the lights from the buildings in the back.
Yeah.
But it was an orb. It was in 1 millisecond in front of me. Yes, it was unforgettable. Yeah, unforgettable. I would like to see his face. I'm not so technically capable. Yes,
Wow. Well,
yes, it was
we'll
beautiful.
look forward to your video when it goes up, because we go for an hour. We just show one orb photo after another, and you've got the what are sort of becoming popular, these light beams coming out of the sky, and you've got doubles, triples. You've got the one with the orb. You can actually see the orb inside the the tunnel of light. You've got some incredible stuff.
Yes, yes. Actually, in a few hundred of pictures, I have that orbs, like in a tunnel, and these beams of light. And yes, actually, I would like to say a few words about how this whole experience changed me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
First,
Because that.
yes, yes. First of all, it's not all about UFOs and extraterrestrials or orbs. It's about I said also before about love, about the universe, about the existence. And they did changed me a lot. I mean, I become vegetarian. I cannot even cook meat. I'm not talking about eating. I cannot cook or smell meat.
Wow.
Just yes, love animals. And when I see in animals' eyes, especially of my cats, I found myself. I see myself in their eyes, and I understand that yes, as everybody here are saying, that we are all one. And
Yeah.
if you hurt somebody, the cat, the dog, you hurt yourself. And it's
Wow.
yeah.
It,
Yes,
that's
thank
pretty
you.
common. We even did an interview with if you're familiar with Tress in Scotland. We did an
Yeah.
interview with her where she also cannot eat meat. She's an animal. She has actually a foundation that protects animals, and she actually sings the light language. So you have
Oh,
this sort of connection that's running across the whole spectrum around the world, that people are it's the same sort of thing. And I would imagine if we were to poll today, we'd find that there would be a huge number of vegetarians that are on
yes.
the meeting today.
Yes, yes. Actually, I feel sorry also for the trees. When for trees, for the grass, for everything. It's like it's crazy. I stopped receiving. I couldn't do it anymore. Stop receiving this, animal information about adoption and things, and how people treating bad animals. I couldn't stand watching at that anymore, because I'm crying all the time when I see somebody or some animal or the trees that are suffering. I'm crying. I feel so bad. I feel very bad. And I stopped. I couldn't do it anymore, so I stopped receiving it.
Wow.
It's yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. And you're on
Thank
Facebook.
you,
People
Grant.
can sort of look you up on Facebook and look
Yeah.
at your photos. You have quite a few of your photos on Facebook, and you've got one of the better collections in the world. So I appreciate your coming forward, and sort of showing people what you've got and helping us educate to the message. I think the number one message you say is love, right?
It's love. It's love. Everything connects with love. Everything is love, and we are all love. When you open yourself, you don't have to do C5 by taking some laser or I don't know lights, and you just go outside, open your heart, and you will be amazed what will happen. What will you're going to get on your pictures, if you want to see them. But with the time, I thought maybe it's not now in this moment. It's not all about pictures, you know. It's about it's about growing. I mean, I'm in a stage that I don't want maybe anymore to take pictures of them, you know.
No, but then I wouldn't be entertained. I love to look at.
Yeah, I will.
It's almost like I call it the theory of wow, where they get your attention by doing weird things and or appearing like that to get your attention, and then they give you the message. But unless they get your attention, you don't hear anything. So they're doing that sort of just to drag us into the story and then educate us.
Absolutely. We
Beautiful.
should grow up. We should grow up. We should stop watching television news and fight, and if you know, just to start to love ourselves and love everybody around us and the nature and the universe and everything. I mean, it's complicated. There are no words to explain. It's very complicated.
Thank you, Annetta.
Thank you, Grant.
Beautiful. Is Julia ready to go? Or we got the videos, Desta? Meanwhile, somebody want to jump in with something that they want to discuss, experience, question for one of the channelers?
There's a story there's a story that I wanted Nick, is Nick still here? Yeah, there's a story I wanted Nick to tell about where he's from in England. Well, he can tell you the story, but it's about two channelers channeling and then the two beings actually talking to each other.
Wow.
I thought you might like that.
So I can come in and talk about that. So I live down in the southwest of England, and we're very lucky that we have somebody locally who channels what I would consider a wise being, or wise beings. So they call themselves a group soul. They call themselves the elder selves. And also there is somebody who channels a being called Zach. And all I will say is I consider them insightful, wise beings. And about every 3 months or so, somebody brings together those two channels and invites other channels to come and create a whole day for people to attend. So it's a whole day of channeling. And the beings do their individual slots, and then the elder selves and Zach and the channels sit up on stage, and they go into trance, and then the beings come in, and they're kind of like a couple of older people, if you like. They have a lot of humor, and they talk with each other, and then there's somebody that feeds them questions from the audience. But I'd also like to also just speak about the fact that I've gone to channeling for most of my life. My maternal grandfather was a medium, although I didn't know him. I was too young when he died. And apparently the whole house would occasionally shake when he went into a room and was conversing with other beings. And when I was at school, we did a kind of Ouija board thing for a while, but I've never personally been interested in channeling myself. But the thing I want to say, that the message is coming down from many different of these beings, is that the earth is in a point where we really can raise our consciousness, and it is desired. And we are in an incredible, exciting, polarized, scary place where there are beings from what we would call the spiritual dimensions that are wanting to help us. There are various alien races wanting to help us. There are a few alien races who are up to no good. There is a cabal, there is a group that have been around perhaps always, who do not want things to go well for the human race. So there is quite a battle going on at the moment. And the essence of the message is that we can get involved in the drama, whether we're a light warrior or a shadow warrior. But that, you know, if we think of it as a triangle, the light and the shadow would be the lower corners of the triangle, And the top of the triangle is a place where we hold and witness and observe and connect with what shadow and light within us. And if we do the work on the inside, doing the work on the inside is actually going to produce the future of the planet, if that's what enough of us want. So there are all sorts of ways this can go. But the message is, the more we work on the inside, the more the outside will reflect what hopefully enough of us want, in terms of the human race continuing, the consciousness raising. And it may not always be helpful to get caught up in the drama, although of course we're given absolute free choice to do that without any judgment kind of associated with it. But there are definitely, apparently, lots of the light beings, lots of ascended masters are coming in very close to our planet. It isn't in any doubt as to what's going to happen in terms of winning, but the forces that have, if you like, entities and human beings who don't hold our future in a good way are trying to hang on and are trying to keep it. So we need to look at the various aspects of our world, including EMFs, climate, the biosphere. But the sector that I'm really in and a specialist in is in couple relationships and communication. And as we're probably all aware, right now, the world needs a huge amount of support with being able to know how to communicate in a safe way so that everybody can be heard.
Beautiful, thanks. Are we ready to go with the videos? I have one other thing if you're still working on the videos.
She dropped them in the chat, but they're still, she said they're still downloading, so.
Okay. So we have, before I was mentioning the fact that there's a university, and the guy's name is actually Dr. Andrew Newberg, who's doing the research on spiritual practices and putting people in these MRI machines and proving that when you pray, you're actually doing something. And there's actually a certain brain pattern, and they can tell by the brain patterns whether you're praying or whether you're meditating or what you're doing. And it's sort of opening up the channel. And that was sort of brought up. Courtney Marchesani is here. I want her to jump on here for a second. She has a master's degree in body-mind medicine. She just has a new book coming out. I wanted her to sort of maybe promote her new book. She's in this sort of field, and she's sort of in the education field where she's actually working still at university on this. And I wanted her to sort of jump in here. She sort of clued me in on who this was because she knows all this scientific stuff that is going on in these different fields. Is Courtney here?
She was here earlier. Doesn't look like she's here now.
Oh. She has a new book that was published by Hay House, which is the big one that did all the books by some of the big writers. So anyway.
No.
Okay. So she has taken off. She was in Alaska, but she's her new book is out. I don't know the name of it, but if I don't remember, it just came out yesterday or the day before. And she goes into, I do a lot on special needs kids and stuff like that, where she's looking at the mind in terms of different types of phenomena. Anybody else want to jump in here with something?
I think Zena wants to jump in.
Zena, go ahead. Unmute. Zena. There you go.
Yeah. I came in very quickly there, but nobody knows who I am. So
go ahead. Well, tell us who you are.
Well, I haven't known anything but a spiritual journey, but I am from a tradition, family-wise, which when I was really young, I understood it. And when I got older, I realized I was alone. I didn't realize that there weren't people around the world, that this wasn't normal. And I found out, I did mention that I had studied with Sufis, and they explained to me that, yeah, there are certain families who carry the tradition. And that's not the biggest part of it, because I mean, they still have the choice in, you know, it's not like, oh, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
So, but it is a family tradition. It's and not family as in it is a tradition, and it's carried on by families, and it doesn't mean everyone does. And that's where I began. So for me, all of this stuff is just totally normal. And the idea of I think I did mention earlier, but for those who weren't listening, when I'm studying, I learn a new language for the study. And it can be very difficult sometimes listening to these shows, because I'm learning that everyone here is working with different studies and different languages. And it's amazing because, of course, as there is a book that was set up to assist with this. And I know there's a newer version of it, but it was released by Aleister Crowley, and it's called 777. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
Anyone out there? It's worthwhile looking at, because what it does is take, it takes, if I'm saying, let's say, soul, another tradition, and I can't even think of a word for it in another tradition, but another tradition would use another word. So it's like the language of speaking is to someone else who you're working with in the world, makes it easier. So it's a technical language is what it would be called. And I've been watching you and Desta and
Sinead, yeah.
For quite a while, and starting to learn the language here. And so the journey, though, of course, was a choice for myself, and I've never moved from it, even though the universe does provide, as you take this journey on, some really, because I'm shaking right now, some horrific things. I definitely, for a good 8 years, and I'm still in the midst of just coming out of it, lived in a living hell, if you want to put it that way. I live in an area where there's very few people here who are spiritual. You know, they just don't have it in their heart. I got to the point where I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm living in a godless world. It's not true, I know, because nobody exists without it. And I'm so thankful for all the work that everyone does here. It's beyond me, and it's amazing. And I said earlier that the message via working with certain groups has taught me that the spirit is changed. It is a different place than it was 100 years ago. And time, of course, as we know, is really a strange thing, and so I can't really get into that. I wanted to know at some point. I was given I really work in music. It is my truest core of who I am, and I was really fascinated that you had come forward and we're looking into music and we're guided to it. And I was at a very young age, you know, about 8 years old, I started studying like fully music, the part of music. And it was at some point that I began many years later, after studying for at least 30 years, I began to work in something called the loosening of the weave. And the loosening of the weave was really kind of unique, because you're speaking here about light languages, and when I'm doing work for someone in this tradition, it brings forward the individual's song and the word songs that work with the individual. You're calling it light language. So if I'm working with a person, that individual has a particular song that goes for their energy. If I'm dealing with their weave, and loosening as in loosening off the heaviness that they're carrying, and the fears and their frustration. So if they come in and they want to get a loosening of the weave, in a sense, they're prepared for that. And there's a whole level of getting into dealing with an individual. So I do practice that, but it's pretty rare that I actually do that type of thing. It's like somebody's prepared for it. They come to me in weird ways. And I think I've never been into documenting it, other than, say, clients I've worked with. And that's writing down, because I was very clearly told a long time ago that to learn is to not be excited about the amazingness, you know, the awe and wonder, that you don't have to worry about it, just let it come. And so the experiences that occur, and there are witnesses to some of them, you know, that have occurred for me over a period of time, but often there isn't. And I don't have pictures. I do have pictures I've drawn, and I do have music. And music really is the area that I present in for the world. And so I have been working in music for a very long time, and that's in a sense my public thing. And over the last year and a half, I've started to do a podcast, and wanted to have Desta on, and yourself and some other people here on the show as well at some point.
Well, what's the name of your podcast?
My Heart Remembers.
Okay, we'll look it up. Yeah, and you have what kind of guests do you bring on there?
I bring on artists, people who are really into their community and helping people. So they don't actually have to be artists. So some of them are community activist type people. I bring on people who are experiencing alien abduction things. It's like a very vast area, because to me, I'm on this globe, and every individual has their own way, as I said, language of experiencing this place that we're in. And so when somebody has truly taken on the task of learning, those are the type of people that I bring on. People who have, and they don't have to be releasing books, and they don't have to be doing anything that people, you know, they don't have to be promoting themselves. So it's a lot of fun, and the people are amazing. That much I do know, and they offer so much. I have a vision, you know. I started with a sense of where I would like it to go, and it does include one person who I wanted to include, and he died in the midst of my making this. That kind of thing happens. So yeah, from artists to people who are just community activists, to people who are fully. I have a background in I was a high priestess in Wicca, as well as ceremonial magician. So my background is really seriously trained in some unique things. Like we do invocations in Wicca. And you talk about, here you use another word, here we go with words. You use the word channeling. And there are varying levels in Wicca of invocation and different forms of allowing, let us say, God or goddess into your being as a priest or priestess. And that whole area is something that I'd love to chat about at some point, but it's pretty intense, long dialogue. So, but I would say it's close to, I know that you were mentioning something about the felines, and I ended up having a very long, many years dealing with felines, whether I wanted to or not. I seriously had a situation where I in a sense, I was helped by a cat, we'll put it that way, and or a goddess of cats. And at a time where I really felt desperate and felt I couldn't, you know, I felt love in my heart, but I was having a very difficult time in life. And one cat stuck around, as I would say, for longer than she normally would. And when she left me, like died, I was shown by her that, guess what, you're going to be working with cats forever now. Like, so it was after that I actually really began to, well, I think I told the story. So I'll tell a story of a short one here, and then I'll kind of leave it at that in the sense of before invocation, I had an experience where my cat, my sister's cat had been run over by a car. And I told Dustin this one because it's very funny, but not, because it's sad. I was laying down at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was semi-sleep, semi-awake. And what happened was this phone, I was in a dream state, and I went to my sister's house, and I walked in the front door, and all the lights were down, and it was dark, even though it was light outside. And I walked in the door, and as I was going in, because there's a front area, and then you know how they have like a veranda covered. It was a covered veranda. So I walked in there, and I heard the phone ring, and at the same time, I heard a knock on the door. So I turned around as I thought, well, I'll answer. I can get the phone anytime. I'll go to the door now. So I went to the door, and there was a being standing there. And this being was elongated and very tall. And she just had this different types of eyes. And she looked at me and she said, tell your sister Jean and your niece Naomi, her daughter, I'm fine. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell her that. And so at that very moment, the phone was still ringing, and I woke up and I walked over and I picked up the phone and I said, what's wrong, Jean? And she went, how did you know? How did you know? I went, well, I was told to tell you something. And she said, okay, what are you going to tell me? And I said, she's okay. And she said, oh my God, my cat died. And there are really uniquely sacred cats from which my father always had in the household, from the oldest cats in the world, in domesticated cats, and they still have them, are in a place called, I got to remember, Van. It's over in Turkey, I think. Yes. Have you heard of Turkish Vans before?
No.
They're white cats. They're the one, so my dad always had them. My sister had one. And this is like, they were domesticated long before Egypt, apparently, in this area. And as a matter of fact, you can go online and find that they'll have all kinds of pictures of their Turkish Vans. And any of the spiritual beings over a period of time they'll have one of these cats with them, one of these white Turkish van cats. So anyway, my sister had lost a cat, and I was clearly told by this being, and that was my first time I ever ran into a being in that particular way. I mean, I have many other adventures with beings, but that one, and so over many years, I have worked with I was even prompted to work with 2 women and a couple other people in San Francisco and open a shop called Bastet's Kindle in San Francisco, because there was some work that needed to be done there. And so the feline thing is still important, in the sense that, as far as I was told, there are people out there who are, we'll call them lions, they're very powerful, clear, loving beings of this era who, via this Sekhmet is the one feline, and the other one is Bastet. And I can't explain everything about them. I have invoked them more times than I would like to, because it's extremely intense to do that. And they have messages which are, personal or whatever, and unique. And Desta had asked me why, or did we have an intent when we invoked them? It was always a very personal thing. So if somebody wanted, in the coven, if somebody wanted to speak with them, but I find that I can be like charged by that energy if I'm just out and I see someone. I've met people and realized and said to them, are you related to this goddess? And they go, yeah. So it's like I can see I can see this energy on people. And as far as I know, in all the stuff I've read, it's almost like they are like a leader. That energy is the leader of our future. And I could get into more details because the study of my life is there, and I know you have amazing guests. So give you a sense of where I'm coming from, and
Okay.
I do have
Well,
documents, but and in the
we can
meantime-
continue next time. We have this event every couple of weeks, so you can come on again, and we'll continue with it. I appreciate your sharing your story.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Beautiful. Is the video ready now, Desta, or are we still stalled?
I think we're still stalled. She said she put them in the chat and that she emailed me them, but I don't have, they're not in the chat and they're not in my email. So maybe it's just the connection is too slow. Maybe we can make sure you have them and you can post them on Facebook, or we could try and play them next time.
Or we can do a interview with Julie and go through the whole story,
Yeah.
which would put it on. That's good. She sounds like good.
She's saying
Anybody
it.
else want to jump in? I see Candace is here and Nicole is here. Anybody want to add anything? How about Liana? Is Liana's here? Unmute yourself if you are. We did a DNA experiment. We did the, we were trying to duplicate the JZ Knight experiment. And Liana helped me, but if she's not here, we can't do that story.
Doesn't,
Elka?
her name isn't there under
Maybe under
Leanna.
Elka or, no, I guess she's not here.
No.
She may have left.
Grant, I'd like to hear from Mark what his project is.
Mark?
Mark, the person you said is here. There is a Mark here.
Oh, is Mark here? I don't know if this is the same Mark. There's lots of Marks.
I don't
Mark Stewart, I think it is.
Wrong Mark.
Oh, this is the Mark from LA.
Yeah.
How you doing,
Yeah.
Mark? Have you got
I'm
anything
good.
to
I'm
say
good.
today? You're everything's going
No,
okay?
it's really interesting. I wasn't, and my son's here, so he'll probably try me. Oh, he'll
Has your
mention
daughter got
something.
a message? Your daughter's very wise. Has she got a message for us?
Yeah, she's it's really interesting. We were talking about all the challenges that the kids are facing these days and not being able to spend time with their friends, and just all that goes on for what is tough for a little person to make sense of. And she was describing how she knew that we were going to get over it, and she knew that it was going to be okay, and that she holds on to the love in her heart because that's what she knows is important. And yeah, she's pretty wise for being 9 years old. That's pretty crazy. So
She must be one of those crystal children.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I wanted to clarify. I think Grant had mentioned Mark was doing a project. Yeah. I'm not the Mark who's doing a project. I'm fairly confident. Are you talking about somebody in the area near you, Grant, that's doing that?
In your area. The guy he's doing the documentary on is in your area. And what they're basically looking at is they're looking not so much at the events of his life, although they go into that, but how it affects the sort of the after effects, which I wanted people to sort of comment, because Greg was mentioning that it's there's all sorts of side effects to when you come out and what you say and how people react to you, and
I'll share with you something that that I had been thinking a little bit about, and again, I wasn't intending to do so. I normally make notes and I'll try to have sort of an idea, but I guess I kind of let it fly, if you will, in this case. Last night, and after several attempts, I finally was able to speak to a woman by the name of Beverly Brodsky.
Okay.
Beverly Brodsky, Grant, you may recall, although you may not know her name.
I want you on the panel. That's the panel of having you on with her. Yeah. So tell her story, and you've had.
Well, yeah, I don't really, I'm not qualified to tell her story. She did give me a little bit of a summary, but I'm sorry.
You had the same story.
Well, it's pretty bizarre. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. I mean, she describes it as a near-death experience, and I think that's where I'd have to question just exactly where I fit into this, because as you know, as we've talked about, what I experienced happened in the deprivation chamber. So it's a little bit different, but still something in terms of something that's powerful and that really does shift who you are, and I think changes the manner by which you now have to process that which you experience in your world. My conversation with Beverly last night was really just because I really needed to talk to somebody who, I guess for lack of a better word, helps me validate that which I I witnessed, or I felt, or whatever you want to call it, that sort of oneness state. So much so that it's so, I've explained to Grant before. I don't have the orbs. I don't have the UFOs. I don't have the beings. I don't have all of the traditional encounters that people seem to be speaking of. And I find them all entirely fascinating and quite captivating. And yet I have, my own sort of whatever, but it's pretty powerful. And there are times when, and Grant knows, there are times when I've put myself into a state through either whatever you want to call it, meditation, or I'm pretty regimented with my fasting now, and I've been delving into other areas by which to sort of accelerate your sensitivity. Yeah. And I do find that what I'm experiencing more recently has been a more continuous, we'll say, and prolonged state of heightened awareness, where I'll be, and just to, again, sort of to summarize, I'll be in that state between waking consciousness and then to the dream state. Yeah. And I'll wake up like it happened, in fact, last night. This is after I was talking to Beverly. She happened to call me at about 9:30, and we're a fairly we're a family of early risers. We're pretty active in the morning, so everybody's in bed in our house no later than 8:30, 9 o'clock. And the phone rings at 9:30, my cell phone, and it just so happens that the kids were playing with my phone. I normally keep my phone on vibrate. Well, they had because they were playing games or doing whatever they were doing, they had activated the the sound, and so I would have missed her call. And we've been playing phone tag for the past couple of weeks now. So we spoke last night, sort of impromptu. I was completely taken, off guard. I wasn't expecting the conversation, but it was a very powerful conversation. We spoke of the difficulty that she faced in 1970 when she had this experience. And here it's been however long now since. And I'll tell you, Grant, it's no easier. It's no easier today.
But you have to tell people the experience. People don't know what you're talking. Let's tell the experience, because it's an important message. And we have, I don't know if it's the same Julia, but we may have the other woman that's had the experience from Edmonton here. I don't know if she wants to jump in, but let's tell the people the experience, because it's a bizarre potential of reality that will shock everybody. What was the message that you and Beverly got?
So here's the maiden voyage. Yeah. Well, what I'll also say, just in preface, is that Grant has written about it. I was able to acquire my electronic copy immediately. It kind of just popped in my head and went, oh my God, it's there. And I went and looked and found it. And then I just received the hard copy in the mail a couple of days ago, and it's in his latest book with Desta. Thank you, Desta, with regards to the contact modalities. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that I had an interest in all of these very paranormal and strange sort of things in my life, but I never had any one specific experience that stood out as a marker, we'll say, for my needing to pay attention, that this was all personal, that anything had to do with me. I would just find it fascinating that anybody could have ESP, or that they could, that this was an actual area of study within the US government, and that there was funding behind it, and that there were really serious people trying to look at the nature of consciousness. But I mean, like Grant, prior to these experiences, consciousness was nothing more than this concept of, some abstract thought of how things come into your waking awareness. But beyond that, I had no idea. And about 2017, I was going through a fairly stressful time in my life because my father had just had a stroke, and it appeared that he was probably going to be checking out sometime soon. He had been having series of medical issues, but nothing too traumatic, nothing too bizarre. But we had noticed changes in his behavior, and then he finally had a stroke where I came to the house, and he was, we'll say 25% paralyzed on one side, and I knew that it was a stroke, and he started to take it seriously. Anyway, the point of the story is I was stressed out, and I was just looking for something to try to take me out of that state, and I happened to come across the deprivation chamber float tank as promoted by Joe Rogan. through the Joe Rogan podcast and or whatever. And I'm not a huge follower necessarily, but I did find it interesting, and I called out to the place, and it's the guy who runs it is a fascinating character in himself, and we talked for a little bit, and finally I went ahead and had the experience, and I was in this float tank and I started hearing a voice. It was weird. I found myself immediately calm and comfortable in this no light, no sound, whatever place. And then in my very first experience, I in there for a 2-hour float, and I hear this voice in my head, clear as day, like completely clear as day, just says, you know, like you got to take good care of yourself. And as it's written in the book, I interpreted that as my own awareness, but just stripped free of all of the noise that goes on within our life, distractions about where you need to be and your schedules and your responsibilities and all that sort of stuff that bogs you down. And instead I was in this very open state, very calm, very relaxed state. And I heard this voice. And as Grant writes about, the moment of clarity did not shock me because it was true. I needed to take better care of myself. I was stressed out. I'm a pretty active person. I'm a fairly professional person, and I push myself. But in this case, it just seemed to be absolutely true, and I wasn't in any way, you know, resistant to it, and it made absolute sense. And I thought, oh, this is great. And I talked about it to, you know, a few people, and I kept on describing it as like, you know, in life, sometimes when you just know something to be true, you just know it, it just comes in, and you're like, you're thankful. You're just thankful. Anyway, second experience was a couple of days later. I floated probably within the next week. And I had a same voice popped in and gave me another message, a very brief sort of thing, maybe a little bit more, you know, description of why this was the case. And it always comes with a description, but it's very personal. And I was like, oh, great, you know, perfect. Just wonderful, this sort of dialogue. Then about a week or so after that, I had another float. And it was at the completion of this float where I'd gotten another message that then this voice had really, and I'll say it asked me, but it really wasn't asking. It was telling me that I needed to write this down. And it was at that point that I started to have somewhat of a breakdown, because it went from this state of, oh, isn't this great? I'm in a heightened state of awareness, and that I'm functioning on, you know, greater number of cylinders, and then the signal is clearer, to now suddenly I'm being told to do something. And as I told Grant, I was fairly defiant. I didn't like it. I started to really think that maybe I was becoming unwound. You know, things were starting to become a little bit scary. And yet it was insistent. It was insistent. It was insistent. And I came home. I was in a state of panic almost, because it was like just whatever. Well, of course, that third float, the message was clear, so I wrote it down, and then it continued. Okay, well, you know, write the rest of it down. But I was in this panic state of just you know, rushing home. Normally, I would spend the day, I'd drive back from my float and be relaxed and, you know, look at the coast or do something, whatever. And this was like I was hurrying home, you know, to put this down. Anyway, I did this, and thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Tony. And I did this, and I couldn't think of the first message, and I just, in a really sort of almost like couldn't believe this sort of way, I put it out there. I said, okay, what was the first message? And like immediately it popped in my head. And then I kind of broke down and was a little, again, shocked. And then I asked again, like, you know, what's the other message? And then, you know, again, right back in my head. And then I think I just put the pen down. I closed this little piece of paper, this little notebook I had. I closed it, and I don't think I floated for another 2.5 months, because I literally thought I had gone insane. I thought something had triggered inside me, and you know, I don't know. Just last night, I was talking to this woman, and again, I don't know her, but given that Grant had found a video where she had described, and I haven't yet told you the experience, that I'll get there, but she had used a word when describing her experience, her near-death experience in 1970, and Grant made the connection because of his abilities. And the word was perfect. And so I really was curious as to what her thoughts were about this. And I spoke to her last night for probably about 45 minutes. And it was a really interesting conversation where she spoke of the struggles that she had had when she had first come forward, and how her family had had all this difficulty with it, and even her close friends, and just everybody just sort of was up in arms about it. And I kept on asking her, well, what's your, how do you gauge the temperature today? How are people in terms of this type of description today? And we talked a little bit about that. Anyway, I get off the phone with her, and I'm just sitting here in my living room, and it's now about 11 o'clock at night, and everybody's fast asleep. And I'm feeling this need to, am I supposed to share this? Am I supposed to do this? I mean, it's a difficult thing and all this sort of stuff. And then my head pops in. Again, this is so strange. Pops in this music has been a big thing lately, but pops in the Who, My Love, and the song, and I could hear it playing as if it was playing, right? You hear a song and it starts playing, and I'm listening to it, but you have to understand, I know that song, but I don't really know that song, right? I don't know. I've never done anything in terms of any research of that group or that song or anything. But I'm a detail-oriented sort of guy. So immediately, because I'm open to these types of experiences, I went, okay, fine, it's My Love. Let me look it up. And I looked up the lyrics. I couldn't even believe it. Couldn't even believe it. And I realized that there are times now in my life, talking back to what Grant was describing, this, where do we go from here, if you will? And it's like, well, how does it affect your life? Well, now if I hear something, rather than just kind of go, okay, maybe I'm imagining this, or I don't know what this is, or it's this, that, or the other thing, I'll just let it be. I'll just kind of just let it flow. And if I can pick it up, great, no problem. And I'll and of course, in yesterday's event, I did so. But if you look at the lyrics, you just go, okay, it's a message of love. It's a message of letting go of all that, which is, your need to sort of compartmentalize everything in the world and make everything right, and instead just believe in the power of love itself, that which is everything. I got a specific message, and Grant again wrote about this in the chapter, which is, I think it was love, God, love, and the universe are all interchangeable terms. It's all the same thing, and that it's the one thing that binds everything. And what's really bizarre was, and now I'll describe. So I didn't continue to float. I was really kind of freaked out. It was really sort of upsetting, but yet they were positive experiences. And so I finally found it within myself to return, and I did so. And I had what is probably more closely described to the out of body, or I don't know what. But again, Grant in the book includes it in the footnote. I was without a body, and I was in space, and I appeared to be just energy, some type of a, almost like a gaseous or some type of a plasma type energy. And I'm floating through space, and I see off into the distance this other sort of energy, but it's way out there. And I'm just kind of looking at it, and it's just beautiful, and everything's great, and it's floating along. And then I see it. It's starting to get larger. As I'm approaching it, but I'm thinking, okay, it's kind of a little to the right. I'm gonna go fly by it, but I'll be close enough. I can kind of look at it. And then as I'm getting closer, and I'm getting closer, I'm describing this to Beverly last night as well. As I'm getting closer and closer and closer, I realize it's either expanding, or it was just larger than I realized. And now I'm gonna make contact, right? I'm gonna go inside this thing, but I don't have any apprehension. There's no anxiety. I'm not in any way resistant. It's just totally fine. And I enter this thing, and immediately, as soon as I entered this whatever, it just, everything was as I said to Grant, everything just became, it's so clear, so connected, and absolutely like understood to be planned and perfect. There was no problem with anything. Everything was was purposeful and intended. And suddenly I'm in this state, and you just kind of go, wow, you know, like, it's talk about the wow moment. I just went, wow. And you feel as if you knew this, but that you didn't know this in the feeling sense, in the purely feeling. You know, it's not your rational mind that's making sense of this. It's this knowing that hits you within your core, and you know you're home. You know you're in this place where that has existed all along, but that you're back now, and you recognize it. One of the guys at the float tank used to say to me, he goes, this younger kid, really smart kid, he goes, Mark, let me ask you this question, because he sees me in my notebook. He sees me running around my notebook, and so he knows that something's going on with this guy. He doesn't just go in there and whatever. So and he says to me, he goes, Mark, is it more that you think you're learning something, or is it you're remembering something that you forgot? And I said, it's probably the latter. It's probably that we already know it, we feel it, and that when we reconnect, it's familiar. So much so that we almost have to ask the question, like, what was I doing all along to have not remembered this critical part, right? Anyway, yeah, so everything was perfect. It was amazing. It was all that sort of stuff. And in that weird sort of state, if you will, I started to, I could probably the ego, it's probably myself, whatever, but I started to go, okay, well, what about this? And like, I threw a question out there, we'll say. And I won't go into the details, but I mean, I thought of some pretty horrendous stuff. I thought of some pretty tragically terrible stuff. And I thought, well, how could this possibly be okay? And then within the instant of my completing that thought, completing that sense of, you know, this is tragic, right? This is terrible. This is pain. This is trauma. This is separation at its best. And it's like, no, even that has its purpose. Even that has its plan. And I felt it and understood it, and even recognized how it affected me and how it affected everyone, and how we all benefited, even from something that would otherwise seem completely completely what's the word I'm looking for? Just reprehensible. But yet, even that experience is designed so as to bring about an awareness that is needed. It needed so that you can somehow now understand the true nature of our experience and the power that we hold, so as to, I guess, be complete, as this thing is intending to be complete. You know, I don't think that fear exists when you understand everything. Fear completely escapes you. And that may be some sort of a grandiose sort of like you're kidding yourself state. Sometimes I fear that myself, like I've walked off the deep end and I don't see problems anymore in the world. Instead, I just see perspectives. I just see the area by which a person has brought in that information and interpreted it based on their own sort of, you know, life's experiences. And guess what? They're all meaningful. They're all important. We're all included. I'm the kind of guy who will go it alone. I've always been very capable. I've always pushed myself really hard. And if need be, I will go it alone. But my challenges these days have been, this experience has taught me maybe to be aware of the importance of everyone else, and that we are all connected, and that rather than feel defensive when I don't agree with another person's perspective or understand how they could feel that way, instead I just include them in my world and in my love, and I try to offer myself, even as I talk with Tony, it's just as a form of, I'll listen, and I'll be attentive, and I'll try to find that which is the beauty inside them. Even that person who's, you know, just really upset or really disconnected or really just spewing, and I'll just remember though, but there's value even in that, and not from some sense of like a level thing where it's better or worse, but just really, if it, and now I remember it was Greg Auld who mentioned this, Grant, you know, if oneness is real, if it's a thing, well, then it's all things. And all things now are suddenly important, and all things are necessary, and all things are included and connected. And so, yeah, I don't know if I,
Yeah,
if I
that's the
gave,
perfect message. And we're going to do a panel on that with you and Beverly. I'm hoping I can get Beverly on, and we have Julie. And that sort of shocked me as it shocked you. And I don't think you talked to many people about it after you had the experience, because it was so shocking. Is this
Grant,
idea that everything is perfect, but there's a bunch of people who've had this very distinct vision that comes with absolute certainty that this is how it actually works.
I watched your interview, and it's, you know, the serendipitous world that we exist within. I watched an interview that you had done with Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, just recently here at the beginning of the month. And you know, it's one thing, guys, to tell a story, and it's another thing for Grant to put it into a book. I'll tell you that, right? I'm thankful because, you know, there's that challenge, which you have to, as I've described before, you have to raise your hand and you have to be counted. But we all get there on our own time, right? We all get there in terms of how we're to go about it. But in Grant's interview with Jimmy, he mentions that you know, there was and I'll be honest here. Grant mentions that there's a guy, and he gets in the float tank, and it's like, he was so embarrassed. He was so embarrassed by this experience that everything was whatever. It's like he didn't tell anybody. And Grant's right. I didn't even tell my wife, because, I mean, look, what are you going to do and say, oh yeah, and by the way, like, that's your plan? You know, I'll share with you this. I look around now, and I see people who, of course, are upset, and of course are struggling, and of course are dealing with whatever sort of strife that exists within their world. We all have that. But one thing I've taken from all of this is that that's great news. That's great news that you know what upsets you, because that, kids, is the marker. That's what you're supposed to be paying attention to. That's stuff that's within you that you don't like, or that is bothering you and that is upsetting. And look, I mean, to cut the conversation short, it all goes back to yourself. It all goes back to you, everything. Because when you are in that calm, quiet, peaceful state, which we are all trying to strive to get in, and I probably accidentally backwards slipped into, because I didn't know any better, it became clear that, yeah, you know, you are the master of yourself, and you go about this life so as to achieve what it is that was intended for you. And there's no expectation, there's no judgment, there's no, you know, there's no penalty or punishment. It's just all designed so as to enrich you and enrich your experience. And those markers where you're upset about stuff, or you're scared of things, or you don't understand something, well, they're there for you to be paying attention to. And it takes courage, right? It takes courage to be paying attention to that stuff. And it takes a sacrifice too, to then say, okay, well, if I'm not supposed to look at everybody else, and I'm not supposed to blame them for my state, well, then what's left? You're left.
Beautiful.
And so, going back to that comment, you go inward. And if you can do so with love, and you can do so with acceptance, and by the way, that starts for yourself, love for yourself, acceptance of yourself, forgiveness towards yourself, forgiving of all those things that we've experienced, and you can do that, then I find it to be enormously powerful in terms of suddenly now you free yourself of all that otherwise would never make sense. There is no way whatsoever everyone is going to ever be alike. Are you kidding me? This is and how absolutely, as my daughter would say, how boring would that be anyway? How would it be? What would a world be like if we were all identical and agreed upon everything and saw everything from the same point of view? It's like, no, we instead complete the soup of love that exists within all of us, and we get to enjoy the perspective and the flavors brought forward from that perspective. And we get, and the best part about it is when you start to really recognize these things, as I've been trying to do, suddenly now it's empowering, because you can actually modify your perspective. you can actually start to understand that there exists something outside of you, but that it doesn't have to be threatening. You can just cherish it for what it is. You can let it envelop you, and you can be thankful for that experience.
Beautiful. Thank you for your wise words, Mark. We're running a little late here, but I want to let people know I've actually did 2 chapters. Mark, I had to sort of drag him out because he's not a very public person. But there's actually 2 chapters. I have Life After Death. I actually have his one story, which is really amazing with his father in the Life After Death. So I appreciate you've become a long way since we first interacted a couple of years back. Yeah, and you're doing your own book. You've got a lot of real good insight on what's going on. And I appreciate you sharing it with everybody because I think the messages you've gotten are very, very important.
Well,
can I weigh in, Mark?
I was going to say, I was just going to say that, and if there's one thing I want to convey, if there's only one thing I could possibly convey to anybody who pay attention, it's that everything exists within you. Everything exists within you. It's not the other very distinct message I got is you are not special, and that everyone and everything is special. It's not at all an individual thing at all. It's this huge thing where you can just be thankful and have gratitude for being connected to it. And there's a lot of freedom in letting go from things having to be the way you thought they needed to be, and instead just let it go and try to find that place where you get to focus on you and the uniqueness which is within you, and the beauty that's within you. And in areas like this, and again, Grant and Desta and Sinead, thank you for doing these things. It's to find that support so that you can tell those stories and you can not be so critical of yourself. I mean, I think sometimes I sit there and I go, I'm nuts, man. This is crazy. This is crazy. I look at my friends. The term I use is I talk to my friends, and sometimes they look up at me, and I realize that, like, it's almost like I'm making up some imaginary language. I'll say, oh no, you're supposed to love everybody, including yourself. And they look at me and they go, what are you talking about? Like, are you kidding me? And then I go, okay, yeah, clearly. So anyway, again, thank you guys, but it's within you. It's not about any one of us. It's within all of us. And I encourage you to go out there with love and acceptance and belief and find it for yourself. And I support that. And if anybody has any more questions, obviously, Grant knows where to find me and all that stuff. But thank you for having me. Thanks for letting me share.
And I'll let Greg finish it. Greg has a comment, and then we'll shut it down.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Mark, regarding love. Now, that has been a very telling and horrifically punishing psychic experience to have love betrayed, as in a divorce. And I'll leave you with this message, Mark. Learn how to say the word love backwards, because that's the message. In our world, we say love, but the other side reads love backwards. And in case anybody is struggling with how to do that, reading love backwards is pronounced evolve. Evolve. It means to evolve your consciousness. And believe me, that comes at one hell of a price. So if you go through a divorce, Mark, I ain't wishing this on you, you will see the sinister side of what this other side is telling you about love, because it sees it just the opposite of what you're perceiving. Anyway, with that out, that's all I have to say. Thanks, Grant, for letting me get that.
That was the main message that Annetta had. And to sum it up, John Lennon said, the answer is love. And what was the question? It's all the core of the universe is love. It's hard to understand. It's to get your mind around it, but you hear the message over and over, oneness and love. So I want to thank everybody for showing up, and anybody who wants to jump in next time, because lots of people didn't get on here, but let us know ahead of time, and we'll actually put you on a schedule where we'll go to you first, because we would like everybody to get an input. But I want to thank everybody for showing up today, and stay tuned, and we'll probably have it in a couple of weeks again. So thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks for working it, Desta.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
all. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thanks all.
everyone.
Wonderful,
My Winnipeg
wonderful
people.
session.
Let's just stop for a second.
Beautiful.
I see that Janet and Miles are here. Can you just briefly, before we end, I didn't know you were here. We're having a little get together up at your farm with the orbs for anybody that's in the Winnipeg area.
Hold on. Am I on?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I've been out gardening, so I look pretty wind blowing here. So yeah, we just need to come up with the date. So I think, yeah, Grant and Desta and Mark and yeah, whomever, we'll figure it out. But you guys are busier than we are, so figure out some dates that work, and hopefully, yeah, we'll see some orbs.
Because you have a farm that has something about the farm, and you have a lot of orb photos. We showed them at one presentation, but anybody who's in the Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada area, we will be going out there to your farm, and we're going to see what we can see, and we'll take some photographs, and we'll show it at the next thing. I appreciate your being on. I was going to bring you up at the beginning, but I didn't realize you were here. So thank you very much. And again, thank everybody for coming. And if they have anything they want to do, especially orb stuff, I'm doing an orb panel. So anybody that wants to come on the orb panel, let me know, get your photographs together. And we're going to do orb 3, probably another 500 photographs of orbs we're going to show. So thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Grant. Bye, Desta. Thank you.
Bye, Candace.
Bye.
Good night.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.